You said that Tommy Pilato contacted you. What projects is he looking to do?
Apparently he was at the South by Southwest Festival, which is down in your neck of the woods, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And he's got as I said, literally as the phone is ringing to talk to you, I was reading my email, and as I've explained, it's now it's 5:35 in the morning here in Paris, France, so I'm a little bleary-eyed, but the details that I was just scanned the email, and he likes the whole. He likes the project, and we're starting a dialogue. So, I mean, as this thing develops, I'll have more information. But I was just reading that. He likes the project. Basically, it boils down to that people are able to help finance a film project with as little as $2. If the film project does, in fact, turn out to be a smash hit or a hit of any kind, then the people who helped to put up this money to begin with as little as $2, they could be in line to get some upside. Mm-hmm. So, usually films don't make any money at all. But if it is a film like Blair Witch Project or Loose Change, for example, and it becomes a runaway smash hit, then everybody ends up, participating in the creation of that project. See, one of the problems with copyright law right now is that all the profits constantly go to a very small group of oligarchs and copyright cartel, as I call it, and the people who are supporting the film and the people who are going out there and seeing the films, they don't get any financial upside. This tries to restore some balance by sharing the upside with the people who are actually part of the success of that film, because they're seeing the film, they're talking about the film. The Hollywood is all driven by fan support. Well, the fans should get a piece of the action, and this allows them to do so. This site, piratemyfilm.com, and it's just in its beta launch right now, and I should see in the next few days more of the functionalities come to life, and I've already got people now asking to put films on the system. I'm getting about 200 people a day just in the last 3 days. When I first talked about it on Infowars, I'm already getting over 200 requests a day to be involved, and so there's a real need out there for these types of projects that are taking this situation in hand and doing something about it in a positive way. The global occupation that we're seeing from the corporations and the banks, who have just taken upon themselves to rule the world in a way that's completely inappropriate for a democracy. You have to go all the way back to the Middle Ages to find a situation where, back in the Middle Ages, 1649, there was something called the divine right of kings. Kings really thought that they were gods. Mm-hmm. And in 1649, there was a rebellion in England, got rid of Charles I, the king at that time, and it was the beginning of parliamentary rule and the beginning of some vestiges of democracy. And then this, over hundreds of years, evolved into the Constitution of America, the Bill of Rights, Declaration of Independence, and it led to the American system of representational government that we're all fond of. But in the last 25 to 30 years, that's been scrubbed by these financial oligarchs, these hedge funds who consider themselves to have divine rights, the divine right of hedge funds. Then not only are they above the law, but they literally think of themselves as gods who can crush people without any thought about it. It's just America right now, Jason, America is experiencing what other countries have experienced over the past 20, 25 years with this notion of these fund managers that they are godlike. In other countries, in Latin America, in Asia, economies have been crushed for the convenience of hedge funds, and people have been put out into the street. The IMF has gone into places like Argentina and destroyed economies. Mm-hmm. And people have ended up having banks closed, having no money, on the street, poverty-stricken and starving to death because of this notion that of the IMF and these hedge funds that they are gods and they can do whatever they want. Now this is visiting America. Now in America, the IMF is taking over, basically, the banking system, and they are foreclosing on millions of people, and people are out in the street, and they're experiencing what people around the world have been experiencing since the 1980s when Citibank was down in Latin America, completely destroying that economy. And so this is a chance to, how do we fight back against this? And my feeling is that there's a way to do it without resorting to violence. And I think throughout history we've seen examples of some success with that. Certainly in the civil rights movement in America was a passive resistance, nonviolent way to push back against the Jim Crow laws, to push back against discrimination. Back in Gandhi's time in India, there was a pushback against the British Empire, and Gandhi came up with this very clever way of making your own salt and not buying British salt and putting Britain out of business. So Pirate My Film is a form of resistance. Let's make our own creative content and share on the upside of our own creative content and cut out the oligarchs, cut out the studios, cut out the labels, cut these guys completely out of the equation by not inviting them in to begin with, and to decapitalize them, drain them of their life supply of cash, and they will, dry up and blow away. And these are the kind of things that we need to do to restore some balance to society and to restore some democratic notions and to restore some of the public domain that's been stolen from us by these, the corporations. And let me just, if I might, talk about this idea of personal responsibility, because this is something you hear a lot in relation to the foreclosure crisis.
Mm-hmm.
People are saying that, well, these people should never have bought these houses to begin with. It's their personal responsibility. They made a mistake, and therefore they're they've lost their homes, and it's their own fault.
Mm-hmm.
I reject that notion entirely, and it's completely false. And anyone who puts that argument forth really is not telling the full story, because the fact is that when a bank makes a loan of, let's say, $500,000 to somebody in the form of a mortgage, the bank immediately sells that loan off into the global loan business, the global loan market. They don't hold that risk on their books. So the bank knows that when they make that loan, that they have no risk in making that loan. The homeowner, of course, absorbs the entire risk of having borrowed that money. But the bank doesn't have any risk at all. Not only does the bank not have any risk, but the banks have been engaged over the past 20 years in successful lobbying of Washington to absolve themselves of not only having no risk, but they don't even have any reserves in these banks. In other words, 25 years ago, if you made a $500,000 loan, a bank would have to keep at least, let's say, $50,000 on their books.
Yeah, the 10%.
As a reserve.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the fractional reserve model.
Mm-hmm.
If you give a bank $100, the bank can turn around and lend $1,000. They only have to keep that 100 on their books. Right?
Yeah, they only have to keep 10%.
Pretty well understood.
Yeah, they only have to keep 10%, and then the Federal Reserve only has to keep 10% of that, as far as I know, and they can loan out even more. Correct?
Right. So what's happened in the last 25 years is that $500,000 loan, which maybe they had to keep $50,000, because of the laws that have been passed under the Bush era and under the Clinton era, they went from having to keep $50,000 down to $5,000, down to $50, down to the current era, and what I described earlier, this is the era of the credit default swap, where the banks don't keep anything on the books at all. We've gone from fractional reserve system to a zero reserve system. There's no reserves at all. The entire banking system is basically a hologram of mathematical probabilities and statistics that have no chance of ever succeeding. It's nothing but losing bets. And this is why you've got the problem of bank failures is still very, very much in the mainstream, very much with us. The banks are technically insolvent. You know, this is not